Hey guys, what is going on? It is Preston here from the Legendarium. Welcome to a brand new episode of 30-Minute Author Interviews. This week, our guest is Forbes West. That's right, the unpredictable, but yet always entertaining Forbes West. And this episode is actually going to be a double episode. It's 60 minutes. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the next 60 minutes with the unpredictable Forbes West. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of 30-Minute Author Interviews. Thank you, Forbes West, for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. And I'm going to pretend we haven't been talking for an hour about random subjects here, Preston, baby.
That's right.
That's fine. That's fine. We're going to just pretend that this is all this like a brand new thing. And then we just walked into the room and, hey, how do you do? I'm Forbes West. Hi, Preston. I haven't been drinking like 3 Seagrams until I got out. I almost spilled my drink. All right. Yeah, we'll pretend that. Okay.
Sounds
all right,
good.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Sound good.
All
right. For those that might not know anything about you, why don't you kind of tell them who you are and what you do?
Well, I am a writer and producer, so I have written a few novels. I've written a short story as well. The first novel I did was Nighthawks at the Mission, which I self-published back in 2013. It got picked up by a publisher. And then it got re-picked up by another publisher, and they will be coming back out in a new format with extra short stories at the end of the month in early October. So Nighthawks Mission was my first one. And then I did Medium Talent, which is an apocalypse weird book, which was a bunch of other authors were involved doing their own novels. And I had one of my books put in that collection, which was Medium Talent, which also will be put out. I don't have an exact date for that with Stitch Smile Publications.
Oh, cool.
And and I have a sequel to that is unpublished at the moment called Bad Dream Man to Medium Talent. So I got about 3 books. And I've also written and produced a short Western film, which you can find online on Amazon called On the Border. And I'm very happy about that one, too. So that is who I am. I'm also a cigar aficionado, a bourbon aficionado, and I've had many different types of bourbons today. Not really, but really just Seagrams, which is not a bourbon. So sorry, I said that. And then also I had Michael Bunker's bourbon, which is quite the tasty one, and I will keep that for special occasions.
Sounds good. So you said you're Nighthawks at the Mission. You self-published, then it got picked up by a publisher, and then picked up by another publisher.
Yeah, and the last publisher is AAP, so All Apparatus Press. That is run by, and I will keep butchering his name because it's funny, Todd Barslow. Okay. I know actually how to say his name, but I just don't because he listens to these podcasts and he gets irritated when I butcher his name. So Todd Barslow. And so he is the one who is doing it, and he's been a great guy and is a new version. It's basically the same, but what's nice is that we've had other authors add short stories set in the Nighthawks at the Mission universe. So that's kind of cool.
So I've never heard of a story being picked up by a publisher and then picked up by another publisher. What was that whole process like, and how did that happen?
I will just say that legally I can't get into details, but one was not one was doing what they're doing, and we had to change gears on that. So we'll put it that way. So I hope that's a tidbit that makes people tantalized, but yes.
For people that might have bought the self-published version, is that still available? If they bought it on the Kindle, do they still have it, or is it completely off?
It should be still on the Kindle if they bought it earlier. I don't think anyone else can buy it now, but if they bought it earlier, definitely should still have it. Also, some people did have the paperback versions once upon a time, too.
I'm going to have to check my Kindle out when we get done because it's downstairs.
I will send you a copy if you need one. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not going to screw you, Preston baby. You know, we have a relationship. You like my stuff, and I'm not going to be like, oh, Preston, you're going to have to wait a while. Yeah, no, that's just like you're just nice enough to get me on a program. I'm going to ignore you for about 30 days. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm not that kind of guy, Preston.
Oh, I know. Why don't you tell people, give them the kind of book blurb on what Nighthawks is about?
Well, Nighthawks at the Mission is about a young woman, Sarah Orange, living in contemporary modern Southern California. And she has a craptacular boyfriend. And in this universe, it's exactly the same as ours. But we discovered about 20 years ago a portal to another planet in the South Pacific. So we send ships in, and settlers go over to this new planet called the Oberon. And what they do there is that they mine materials that basically allow them to do magic. And she decides that she hates Southern California and hates her job at Subway. And so she hops a ship, the Queen Mary, from Long Beach, and she takes it into the Oberon, and she decides that she's going to live on this incredibly new planet, doing a very routine 9-to-5 job. But what happens is that she is young and inexperienced in the ways of life, and she falls in with some criminal elements and becomes a petty criminal, salvaging high-tech, extremely powerful magic items from dead cities on this new planet. And she gets mixed up in the whole case of terrorists trying to liberate the planet for the original inhabitants, the original aliens, quote unquote, that actually lived there. And so she gets intrigued with the politics and finds out that her sister, who had gone there years before, who was supposed to be dead, is actually very, very, very much alive and up to something no good.
Gotcha. Before I ask you a question, I was going to ask you about writing. We were mentioning some of your books that you've written. There are some people out there that think you might be Alistair Foley, or Foley, however he says it.
No, I can expose who that is. No, that
well,
is
we
not
don't want to
true.
do that. So are you... We don't want to say who it is, but are you Alistair Foley?
No, but you know what? I will give a hint for your audience. I'll give the first hint who that is. And I will say that it is a name close to Kendall Y. Autumn. Kendall Y. Autumn. Now, if your listeners are worth a half a crap in the indie world, they should realize something K, something middle initial, something that sounds like a season is actually the person behind it. No, I'm not. But I will actually take credit for that because I like to keep my identity kind of private, so I will play with that as much as I want. So, yeah, you can think that. That's your reality. I'm not going to invade your reality, Preston, baby.
So is Forbes West your actual name, or is that a pen name?
Oh, that is exactly a pen name.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is. Because once upon a time, I worked for a corporate company, and I didn't want to have questions at the water cooler. So, yes. But actually, I will say that, however, to give a hint about my identity, there is one part of that name that is actually real. So, there you go.
There we go. So, is there any special meaning to the pen name?
Well, it's just one part of the name is a favorite place I would like to go to, and then one part of the name is actually my real name. So there we go.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's a riddle wrapped in an enigma, wrapped in a mystery, wrapped in a BS sandwich. So yeah.
So you said you're a producer and you write screenplays. So did you start writing screenplays first, or did you start writing stories first?
Actually, I really did write screenplays first. When about 2001, my wife, but this was when I was going to school, I was actually much more into political science. I was actually much more into politics. And so my wife, who I was dating at the time, was saying that, politics is kind of, well, I mean, you'd be good at it, but I think it's kind of nasty, and I think you kind of would have more fun with your writing stuff. Because I kind of loosely told her that I was trying to do some writing things. And she's like, yeah, you should kind of just, take an angle and just do something a little bit better with that. And I'm like, I don't know about that. But I did because, I was dating her. So I folded like a cheap house of cards or whatever metaphor I was mixing up there. And, I decided like, well, sure, I'll do some writing. So I got some screenplay books. I got one from an experienced screenplay writer, which is always suspicious when you get a book from a supposed experienced screenplay writer, because if they're writing a book about how to write screenplays, most of the time you kind of have the impression that their screenplays weren't that good. Otherwise, they would not be writing that how to write book. And then the book I read was a screenplay for dummies thing. And, it's one of those big yellow kind of binderish books.
Right.
And I read the Screenplay for Dummies. I was like, oh, I could probably do something like that. I like screenplays. I like movies a lot. I mean, honestly, I'm much more of a movie guy than a book guy. And so I started playing around with that, and all the way back in like 2001. And I started doing it, and the first drafts were awful, and the screenplays were terrible. And it was fun, and I was just playing around with it, and I kind of just kept it as a hobby for years. And it was only about 6 years ago, I was like, yeah, maybe I can actually do something more with that. And then I just kept going more and more, and I started writing screenplays. And then after a while, I got bored with screenplays, and I was like, maybe I should write a novel. And so I was like, yeah, okay, I'll try to do that. And a novel I find to be much more liberating than a screenplay, because a screenplay, everything has to be shown, every emotion, everything getting across. There has to be some visual cue. You don't have the freedom of a pure novel. And I completed my first novel, which is Nighthawks at the Mission, back in 2013 when I just turned 30. And that was pretty much because I was in Miami and Key West with a really good friend of mine. And he was, we're sitting on the beach drinking, and he was like, maybe you should just self-publish it through Amazon. People are doing that now. That's a thing. And back then I was like, self-publish? That sounds like Vandy Press crap. I'm not going to do that. I'm cool. I can be like Stephen King right off the bat. I can get Viking to give me a, $2 million advance because I wrote some book about some girl getting a period and being able to be telekinetic. So that's what I did. And then, I put that online, and then I got picked up by a publisher a little bit later, and then I got picked up by another one. And that's the story thus far. But, I played around with screenplays for a long time, and I really do enjoy them. But I just think that novels are much more liberating because you can basically cheat in novels. I don't know if that makes sense to the non-writing audience out there, but you can just have much more freedom to do whatever you want.
So which one do you find harder, writing the screenplay or writing a story?
I think writing a screenplay is much more difficult. I think with that, you're trying to shorthand a lot of stuff. You're trying to showcase visual cues about what's going on internally with characters. I think that, you don't have these nice moments of revelation, like someone thinking over things or like the reactions to people. You always have to be in the visual format, showcase it. You can't just say like in a screenplay, oh, he felt sad, so there it is. You have to be like, oh, well, he looks down, he shovels his feet, he speaks in a low tone in, recognition of what the other person said. And I just think that, with that, it's a little tricky to get across because, again, you're providing enough information for the director and the actors to take. And after a while, it's just a trickier format because even some things you want to get across, the director might disagree with, or the actor might not recognize what you're trying to do. So you're always kind of like in this miniature battle from a while. That saying yeah, I wanted you to kind of do this. I wanted you to kind of do that. I know I said this in the screenplay, but we were kind of looking for this. And I think in a novel, whatever you put out is done, permanent. That's it. You get the whole idea across. You don't have to be so worried about what visual format it is or how it's going to look on screen because you're basically just telling a simple story that gets across to the person's, the other person's mind's eye kind of thing.
So which one do you enjoy more? Do you enjoy doing screenplays more or the writing?
I think the writing I enjoy more because I don't feel encumbered by format and I don't feel encumbered by thinking what other people are going to try to get across on screen because, it's a filtering process with screenplays. I write it, the director visualizes it, tries to set up the scene, and then the actor tries to execute it. And that's fun and all, and that's interesting a lot of times, because a lot of times, like, I will write something, especially when I was doing that short film On the Border, I would write something, the director would kind of come with a different twist, and then the actor would come up with something different. And it was interesting to kind of see the process of from, A to C. But it wasn't really my thing because, like, there's a filtering system where they're doing different stuff. With a novel, I just like to go, okay, I write it out, hit save, send to an editor, there's some tweaking, publish, done. That's my whole thing. You see exactly what's coming on my mind.
Right. So you've mentioned On the Border was the latest thing that came out that you wrote and produced. Can you tell people what that's about?
Well, it's directed by a really good Spanish director, Guillermo Polo, and what it is it's a very simple story. It's a cowboy who is lost in the desert after he's mistaken identity, where a Texas Ranger thinks that he is a bounty worth capturing. So he kills the Texas Ranger, but he uses up all the bullets in his gun. And he's kind of coming out of the desert. He has no ride to get out. And he finds a young woman in white, covered in blood, who doesn't speak English, and she's talking about a threat that's coming around the corner. And so he decides that he's going to be doing the right thing and help her out. And what happens is that there's a very vicious character, bounty hunter, who comes out of the wastes of the desert who basically challenges him to a duel. And that's it. This is a short film like that, and it's got a few more twists after that, and it's not your typical, showdown cowboy style kind of thing. But that's basically what the story is. We shot it out in Joshua Tree. We had 3 fantastic actors, Ray Trickett, James Seaman, and Claudia Zelke. And it's kind of like a typical story of the showdown in the Old West, but kind of turned on its head.
Now, on your IMDb page, it says that you have a TV series in post-production called The Property. Can you tell us anything about that at the moment?
I will just say that is something that we shot a visual storyboard idea. And what that is I really can't get into details about that, but that is basically based on certain life experiences I've done in the property management field. So property management is just like, a fancy term for a corporate landlord kind of thing.
Gotcha. And then one other thing that you do that I follow pretty regularly is you have a podcast called Live at the Benbow Inn. Where did your idea for Live at the Benbow Inn come from? And for those that have never listened to it, how would you describe it to somebody?
Well, the original idea for Live at the Benbow Inn was because once upon a time, again, this is going back to the property management days, I had a partner I worked with, and we used to BS in the office all day long about random subjects. And we always thought that if we hit record at some point on our cell phones, we would have genius radio. And then I moved on from that. And so I always kind of kept that in my mind. It's like, yeah, you know what? I can BS with the best of them. I can really talk up a storm about random subjects. And so I, already working on the connections I had in the indie author community, I decided that, you know what, it'd be great if we could bring indie authors on and just talk about random subjects that are somewhat connected with like sci-fi and writing, and then also make sure there's plenty of booze to go around, and then we all get a little bit boozed up, and then we all start singing, and saying what we want. And, maybe get some ugliness sometimes, and maybe get some truth, and maybe get some comedy, and then, we slap it together and we put it on. My podcast, by the way, is nowhere near as professional as yours. You gave me a whole media package thing to read. I have never done that. And actually, and you say you also edit your stuff. I've never edited anything. The only thing we did is we put a song in the beginning and then at the end. That's the only editing we've ever done. And again, it was just like I just hit record and we just like talk crap for like an hour and a half about random stuff. We talk about zombies. We talk about Star Trek. We talk about how to survive the end of the world, where the world is going. We talk about Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. So, I mean, again, it's a basically sci-fi podcast, alcohol, rambling, personal insults, and a few cases of true ugliness. And I think that's our whole podcast wrapped up.
It's pretty funny. If people haven't listened to it, they have to check it out, because we did find out in your last episode, no, the first episode of season 2, that I'm going to butcher his name because I just will. Jason Onspach is stealing money from the tip jar, I believe.
Well, he is, and he's a real true son of a bitch, and he's just, and again, it's just like, we make jokes about this, but the fact is that Coca-Cola machine has not been paying for itself for the last 6 months, and only 2 people have the keys, and Jason, he says he doesn't have a key. I remember giving him a key to the Coca-Cola machine, and it's just like, this quarters is not there, and people are taking out all the cherry Cokes they want, and I'm not having it.
That's funny. Another question about the Benbow Inn.
Yes.
Can the Legendarium have a drink on your menu? And if so, what would you put in it? Because I'm not a drinker.
Legendarium, what would you drink? I think, you know what? You sound to me like, again, a very classy Southern gentleman. So I got to think that, what we don't really have in the menu is a mint julep. Now, I know you're not a Kentucky guy.
No.
And I know Kentucky maybe in some circles would not be considered the South, but I think that a fancy Legendarium julep, maybe we take, bourbon and like the mint and the julep. I don't even know if that's a thing. We mix it together and like maybe we could, but you know what we do? We make a mint julep, but instead of like just pure bourbon, it's like half bourbon, half Southern Comfort, and half whatever the mint julep is, and mint. And you that's your thing. That you're the Legendarium julep.
There we go.
There we go. And again, it's just like, because you got a classic guy. I see your picture right now. You got a bow tie on.
Yep.
A lot of guys who wear bow ties, they're always gentlemen. I mean, I don't see guys that. Have you ever been in a fight with a guy with a bow tie on?
I've never been in a fight ever.
You've never been in a fight ever? Like, not even in high school?
Not even in high school. I pushed a guy once, and that was it.
Oh, God, man, you are just killing me with this stuff. That's what I'm talking about, gentlemen. I mean, it's just like, I fought a Russian guy on a bus one time. That's a true story. That's not even like something to laugh about. That was a whole thing that happened. And it's just
really?
Like, but you know what? I didn't have a bow tie on. If I had the bow tie on, maybe he's like, the gun red. I don't no.
He might have changed his mind. He might have thought you had something hidden that you could have thrown at him or something.
Yeah, I think, if you got bow ties on, you're probably just the kind of guy who's like pulls out a sword and it's like, let's duel at Meffer.
There we go.
So again, it's like, Legendarium julep. That's what I would have at the Benbow Inn.
There we go.
I think that, again, that, you know what, you're a nice guy. You come from a rich culture and you got a bow tie on, and it's just like, if stuff's going down, it's got to be serious. So I think a julep is a serious drink, and it's a nice drink, and it's a gentleman's drink.
There we go.
Oh.
Well, I'm going to ask you, I'm sure you've been asked before since you're an author, who do you enjoy? What's your favorite book of all time and all that? But I want to throw a little twist at you since you're Mr. Forbes West. Instead of what book do you love, how about what book do you dislike and why?
What book did I dislike and why?
Is there ever a book you didn't finish?
Yeah, you know what? Actually, I do have a book, and that's actually like really funny because I'm really pretty. I guess I would say like I'm pretty nice about like a lot of books. Like, I mean, most of the time, if I pick a book in a bookstore to actually read, I'm usually not disappointed. I might not be saying like it's the greatest book on God's green earth, but it's, usually something I can get from like start to finish, right? Mm-hmm. But the one book I did have, and it happened relatively recently, is the freaking Hunger Games book.
Really?
Yeah. Now, and this is funny because like I actually like the Hunger Games movies.
Okay.
The movies I thought were interesting. I thought were pretty well done. And who does the Hunger Games? Like Suzanne Collins? Is that?
I believe so.
Okay. Does that make sense? Because when I say Suzanne Collins, I keep thinking like Jackie Collins and like, like something like the softcore smut that, housewives read.
Yeah, Suzanne Collins. Just pulled it up. Suzanne Collins.
Okay, Suzanne Collins, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you for pulling that up. I would not do that because I don't have the energy. But, Hunger Games book, I mean, again, the movies I think are actually pretty interesting done. Mm-hmm. The book there's no adjectives. There's nothing to describe anything. I don't know what the hell. It's like, oh, a soldier pulled her into a room. He was angry. He said that she would be the one in the Hunger Games. Oh, I'm the one in the Hunger Games, she said. I'm like, I don't know what you look like. I don't know what the hell is going on. All I know is that you're supposed to live in like a crappy, Appalachian town because I saw the freaking movie.
Right.
And it's just like, but apparently not. There's nothing going on. I don't know what the hell your description is. It's just like, everything's like a pronoun. Everything's bland. Everything is just like, oh, you got to fight in the Hunger Games now. Oh, do I? She said. And it's like, not angrily, not upset. She didn't, brush her hair in a terrible fashion and look him straight in the eye. No, it's just there's no description of anything. It's just like basically like it's like reading a script of only dialogue, and I just and there's nothing like no little indicators of what we're supposed to be, and it's like, oh, this will be your trainer. He's a drunk. Why is he a drunk? Why? Oh, can you show that to me? Could he could drop a bottle off his pants when he first shows up in the scene? No, you're not telling me any things. I mean, it's just like the book has no adjectives. It's like a transmission from an alien race 30 light years away, and they don't tell you a thing about what they're talking about. They just say pronouns and they don't say words. It's just like, take me to your leader. Who's our leader? The leader. That's the book. And that book pissed me off. I didn't finish it because I saw the movie because it was like, she wins.
Right.
Hunger Games. I was going to say the F word, but you said you're going to bleep me out. But,
that's right.
She wins the F in Hunger Games. Yeah, I got that. Okay, fantastic. I'll just wait till the next one with Philip Seymour Hoffman showing up in the next one. All right. No, but that was the one book I really could not get into, and I don't know what was going on. And then also kind of pissed me off too because the fact is that the book that everyone, had an orgasm over is pretty much a stale derivative of The Running Man by Stephen King and then also the Japanese film Battle Royale. And that's what pissed me off even more. I still don't know to this day why I decided to read this book, considering I already knew that information beforehand, but I guess I'm a masochist. So I'm just going to torture myself for a while. But it really was derivative of that stuff. Again, Running Man and, the whole TV angle and the Battle Royale with we throw some kids in an island and they have to kill each other.
I'm trying to think if I read Battle Royale. I know I saw the movie.
No, it wasn't. I don't think it was ever a book. It was definitely just a movie. So
was it just a movie?
I think so, yeah. So I just knew that as a movie, and it was great because, my wife is Japanese and I have Japanese in-laws. And I remember talking about Hunger Games a few years back. And they're like, oh, you mean the American version of Battle Royale? What everyone said. And then without prompting, there wasn't I was trying to goad them into saying that. They already knew what the hell it was.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's Battle Royale. And it's got that Jennifer Lawrence,
Yeah.
And then Running Man 2 is just that's a cool one, but that's a film that's also a cinematic abortion. But the book itself is freaking awesome. I would recommend that book. That's a book that no one talks about enough. Running Man predicts your entire future. And I mean everything in the 21st century. Really? I'm talking. Yeah, Running Man does not get any freaking credit. Okay, Running Man by Stephen King predicted reality television, police state, overpollution, crisis in the Middle East, and you're gonna have to probably put a whole long spoilers alert thing. I don't know if spoilers counts for the book that came out in 1983, but whatever. Spoilers: at the end of the book, he hijacks a plane and crashes it into a massive tower in the middle of a major city. What does that sound like to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the 1983, that was the whole thing. As a statement against the world he was living in, he crashed the plane into a tower.
Wow.
And then reality TV. And then questions about voting machines being rigged.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Again, it's just that not saying Stephen King started Al Qaeda, but maybe he did.
I'll have to read. I've actually never read it or watched the movie, so.
And I just ruined the book for you. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff in the middle.
It really is. There's a lot of good stuff. And then Running Man, I think, is one of the best science fiction film or books. And it's completely ruined because if you say Running Man, people think, oh, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where he fights wrestlers. Yeah, no, not really. It's a bit deeper.
Read the book, forget the movie.
Yeah, that's the strongest one I could possibly say, and I can't believe they haven't remade that. But considering the ending of the original book, I don't know how. Oh, we have a hero character who crashes a jetliner into a tower full of civilians.
Well, no, in Hollywood they like doing remakes, so they might be working on a remake as we speak.
That's true.
You never know.
It's like a remake, and then you have 9/11 at the end. That's what cheers up everyone.
Yeah, and it's kind of funny you talk about the movie not being as good. I actually just read. I saw a trailer for a movie called Nerve. I hadn't seen. Basically, it was based on a book, and the trailer looked amazing. So I went and bought the book, because I figured it'd be just as good. And the reviews were, this is the one instance where the movie blows the book out of the water. The book sucks compared to the movie. And I don't know if you've seen the trailer for it, but it's about there's this. What's
it called again? Nerve?
Nerve.
Okay.
There is a app for your phone, you watch it on the computer. It's an internet site called Nerve, and people sign up to join. They send a tryout video, and you have to do a dare to get on. And then if they pick you for the show, then you get prizes for each dare that you do. But as you go on, the dares get a little bit more. They're supposed to get a little bit more dangerous or a little bit more involved or whatever, but you win more money for it because of it. But if you I think in the trailer it says if you don't complete the dare or you don't do it, you lose everything.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and so I was like, well, this book has got to be good. I was like, forget what the review said.
Yeah.
All the stuff that's in the trailer, not a single bit of it is in the book at all. So it's literally like the movie producer. I'm curious to see the movie. Paul Kohler saw the movie and he's about to read the book because he really enjoyed the movie. He said the Kohler family gives it thumbs up. So I think maybe the author was like, this is a pretty good premise, having an app on your phone and the computer, you get money for dares. This probably is going to happen soon, but let's amp it up a little bit from what's in the book. And yeah, I was disappointed in the book, but the movie I hear is great.
But that's a rare circumstance.
Yeah.
But it does happen. I think one of the best examples is The Natural, which was a movie with Robert Redford, but originally was a book. The Natural as a movie is better than what the book gets across. It's ridiculously better. And the ending is one of the most cinematic, one of the greatest moments in cinema history is the ending of Robert Redford, hitting the home run into the overhead lights of the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that every time gives me chills because how cool that ending is, considering what the whole story is leading up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's a rarity where you actually find that. But honestly, Hunger Games, the book versus Hunger Games, the movie, the movie's better too. And it sounds like this Nerve is in the same rare category.
I had no idea that The Natural was a book. I always thought it was just a movie.
Yeah, Natural was a book. And in the book, from what I remember, is that the book's ending is a real sucker punch, because what happens is that he strikes out at the end of the whole thing. Right. So you've seen the movie, right?
Yeah, a long time ago, but I do remember seeing it. And
yeah, but you remember the whole great ending, he gets into the lights and everything.
Yeah.
And so, but in the book, he strikes out, and then he's accused of throwing the game. And then he's just pretty much in that's all I remember. And then he just pretty much shovels off and then goes to a train station, and that's the ending.
Wow.
It's just oh, thanks. It's you just see the Price is Right fail sound at the end. That was The Naturals. Instead of the rousing score of whoever the
right. So what book are you currently reading right now, and what do you think of it so far?
You know what? I am currently reading right now, pretty much, I'm sorry not to give you a good answer with this. I'm currently rereading To Have or Have Not again, by Ernest Hemingway. And I just enjoy that book because it, on the surface, is kind of kind of like a hard-boiled crime novel kind of thing, because it's about a guy who's smuggling in the Keys during the 1930s, and like, everyone's poor as what.
Mm-hmm.
And but what I like about it is that about 2/3 of the book in, it starts turning into almost like, and I don't know if this is the right interpretation, but this is my interpretation of the book, is it pretty much how marriages end, and like the ugliness of marriages ending either through, people leaving each other through divorce or through death. And it's a really it's a beautiful book because it's like, it's got the descriptions of like the Keys and like Havana, Cuba, 1930s. And then it's got this whole like left turn where it's like this talking about like, people's marriages ending. And not that my marriage would be ending. I'm very happy married, but it seems to me it's just like, it gives you kind of an insight, because when he wrote it, I think was like towards the tail end of the 30s. And he must known by then that he's already leaving his second wife. So you kind of like, it's a rare moment where you kind of get an instance of like this author psych in the writing. And again, it's a cool setting, but then you kind of like, oh yeah, you're already kind of checked out, aren't you? Because, Hemingway was married about 4 times. So like, when the end of the book of The Have or Have Not, he's already leaving his second wife for his third wife. And I was like, oh, Jesus, this is quite the depressing ending.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I guess I'm just reading it because, again, I like the visceralness of the novel, and the way it's, the voice of the novel is from the most of the time, except for towards the end, the last 1/3 is from the main character, and the main character sounds like just what you expect a Southern guy in the 1930s to be talking like, and I think it's just beautiful. So,
gotcha. And if I'm remembering correct, we're going to switch back to your work now. You worked with Michael Bunker on doing the screenplay for Pennsylvania.
Yes.
What was that whole process like? And
it was an ugly endeavor, and he is an ugly person, and every moment was sheer hell. And it was mostly sending threatening emails about legal matters back and forth, and then watching him crumble, and then him calling up on Skype and in rambling in tears. And you could tell he was drinking, but no, it was actually great. It was actually a fantastic experience. I actually liked it because Pennsylvania is an interesting novel with Michael, and I think he did a good job with that. And I think that the setting is interesting because I'm not like a truly hard sci-fi guy. I kind of like lean towards the sci-fi fantasy angle of things.
Okay.
But he does, like, one of the things I liked about the book was that there were certain futuristic predictions of where people are going that I thought was pretty dead on. And when we were working on the project, working for a producer here in Hollywood, to put together the screenplay, I thought that was interesting because it was like one of the first stories I've read in a while where it seemed like the future could be sort of accurately predicted. It was one of these things because, when you have, I don't know if there's really been hard sci-fi movies in a long time that seem to really accurately predict the future, but Pennsylvania, I think, was one of those where there's certain elements when it came to the tech and, the way the world was. It's like, yeah, I could kind of see that happening. And that's why I enjoyed working on it because I'm not that kind of guy. I don't read like tech magazines and seeing where like future trends are going or anything like that. I always deal on the kind of heavily fantasy side of the sci-fi fantasy. And so working with him, it's like, oh, that could happen. Oh, yeah, I could see people acting like that. Oh, I could see people doing that to themselves. And I thought that was a great experience. And Michael is a gentleman who really does his homework on these certain fields, and it was just like, this is kind of fun because, again, that's outside my purview because, again, I like Star Wars more than Star Trek, so to speak.
Y'all have had to hand the screenwriting off to other people now, though, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. That's just the name of the game. The production on all of that was that, we did to a certain point, and, potentially we can get something out of it, so to speak. But the thing is that, for the deal to close, there's certain people involved that, want to have their own people. So that's pretty much it. And that's it. That's pretty typical Hollywood stuff because, again, to kind of give you an idea of like when Alien first came out, right, or the first script for Alien, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can actually look this up online. There's a few websites that actually have the original script of Alien, and you can see how freaking different the original script of Alien is versus what you actually saw in the theaters. And the reason is because of budgetary, director, input and all sorts of stuff like that. So like, when you watch or when you read the first, script of Alien by Dan O'Banion, and I hope I got the name right. It's, there's no female characters, for example. It's pretty much like sort of like a long Star Trek episode. There's a giant pyramid involved. There's the whole thing with the alien is a bit different, with the face hugging and all that. And then you read what is basically 8 editions in to what actually was filmed. And then you go, oh, okay. So they kind of went in a different direction. And Ridley Scott got involved with that and kind of put some pointers in. And that's what we got. And that happens with everything because, again, the whole process of screenwriting. And I've seen this just on a very minor scale with my own short film is that, the filters you have to go through between figuring out what the budget is, what you can do, and then who's going to direct it, and then what the director wants, and then rewriting based on that, and then rewriting based on locations and what you can actually maintain, and then also rewriting based on actor input. You do get a very different product. I mean, just to give you an idea, like On the Border, I originally had envisioned as slightly as a horror film, and it was going to be done all at night, and it was going to be something with like a campfire at nighttime, and then, a stranger coming up to a cowboy who's, pretty much lost in the desert at nighttime. That would have been a hell of a lot different than what we did. And the reason why it became, slightly more traditional as opposed to the horror version was because we couldn't afford a costume. We couldn't afford to put a film crew at night. We couldn't afford this, that, and the other. And I think that, when you read the different versions of Alien, you kind of realize that they kind of came to, sort of the same conclusions after a while because of, budgetary and then also outside input on the script.
So are you involved any at all with what's going on with Pennsylvania hopefully getting to the big screen or Netflix or something? Are you involved anymore?
No, nothing anymore with that. We just pretty much, kind of seeing how it plays out. And that's pretty much, there's nothing more actively to be done, so to speak.
Gotcha. So then what are you working on currently at the moment? Can you give us any details?
I'm working on a couple books, and one is a more serious literature thing right now for myself. And then I'm working on a new project with Michael. And I'll just leave it at that. I can't really go into details, but you might be, let's put it this way, might be pleasantly surprised in a very short amount of time.
Sounds good. Can't wait to see whatever it is.
Thank you.
We have some questions from some of your fans and my listeners.
Okay.
So yeah, you're in for a treat with these.
I would hope so.
The first one is from Jackie Chen. She wants to know. She says, "Tell us what you do to prepare a character for existence within your created world."
So, what I do for a character?
Yeah, what you do for preparing for a character for existence in your created world.
Boy, I don't really. I mean, I just kind of just shoot from the hip. I mean, I just kind of like if a character is supposed to be there, it kind of just appears in my imagination. I really don't. I'm actually not a believer in outlines. Really?
Okay.
Because that's a common thing with authors, and then for obvious reasons that you kind of outline where you're going with stuff. I think that if I really don't know where the story's going to turn, I think that's good because the writer or the reader is not going to know that. And so I kind of just do it up on the fly. And a lot of times when characters come out, it really is just out of the blue. I'm just talking to myself in my head, and then someone will pop up, and I don't base it on people. I don't do anything like that. It's almost like a dreamlike state. I mean, I have to kind of reach into my subconscious to really kind of pull it off. I mean, I really don't look into anything. I mean, maybe historical characters sometimes, but not really even that. It kind of pops up. It's a dreamlike state. Is this something where, I kind of meditate on it and I just kind of think about it, and then it's just like that person's there and he wants to talk and he wants to be there.
So do you ever have the ending already kind of in your head, or you just see where it's going to go?
I always see where it's going to go. I don't believe in outlines because I think a lot of times it becomes really static, and then a lot of times people will be like, oh, I already see where this is going. Yeah, got it. And I hate that in books because, like, nowadays, I mean, I was watching an episode of Longmire once upon a time with my parents, and I'm not saying like I'm really this cool of a writer or anything like that, but I already knew where the ending was of the episode.
Oh, okay.
Like, I forget exactly what the episode was, but it was like, I remember I was watching with my parents, and my wife was, she was out of the country. She was visiting her own parents in Japan, and we're watching Longmire. And Longmire is a good show, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, but there was an episode where it's all like, oh, someone, and I told my parents like about 10 minutes in, it's like, oh, yeah, the guy's buried in the graveyard already. And they're all like, what? I'm like, yeah, no, that's the ending. He killed him and put him in the graveyard. and then they're like, and again, like about, 40 more minutes in, with the Longmire, it's like, yeah, that was the ending. And it's just like, I'm sorry, I really do concede most of the time where the stuff is coming off. I mean, it's just, it doesn't, I'm very rarely surprised with this stuff. And again, I'm not saying I'm that cool. It's just that I read a hell of a lot when I was younger, and I kind of see the tricks of the trade with that. So with an outline, I'm kind of already predicting where I'm going to go. And it's just like, I think that does the reader a disservice because, readers are not dumb. And I never pretend that readers are dumb and that I can pull one over on them. I think readers are very smart most of the time. And I think that I should just take a moment to, kind of bring it up on the fly, because again, the left turns are what I always love in films. I mean, I kind of, there was, like David Lynch films, for example, always have very good left turns where you don't see them coming out anywhere. One of the films I love a lot, and I don't know who the director is, and Gabriel Burns is in it, but I don't remember the name of the main actress. But Samilla's Sense of Snow is a real good one where it's like there's a good left turn in the whole story. And I like those left turns. I like the fact that it's just like I thought it was going some way, and then, holy God, what is this?
Right.
And I try to bring that into my bone books. And again, doing it without an outline is tricky, but I think most of the time I can stick the landing. So
the next question comes from Christopher Bohr.
Oh, Christopher Bohr's got to have something to say, huh? Yeah, Christopher, you're listening? Yeah, I got your number, pal.
He says, why does he wear a bear rug out on the town, and why would a werewolf wear a bear rug anyways?
Excuse me. One, it's fashionable anywhere I go because I'm wearing it, and then a werewolf wears it because it might be chilly outside. You dumb English. And you're gonna have to bleep what I'm gonna say next, but you dumb English.
The next question comes from Michael Bunker.
No, of course the Bunker's gotta say something.
Yeah, you might have to explain this one.
Yeah.
He says, why did the proceeds from the Shreveport job went to his trip to Japan instead of being split up by the parties involved?
You know what that is? Because Danny Boy didn't bring the screwdriver when he was supposed to. And how about that? And I'm looking at about 5 to 10 because Danny Boy, your guy you recommended, Bunker, didn't do what they're supposed to do. And I'm going to leave it at that. Bunker knows exactly what I'm talking about. So guess what? Call it a speeding ticket.
The next one comes from Ian Garner. He says, is it true that you and D.B. Cooper dropped the cash in Bigfoot's den?
Why would I even speak about something like that? That's very important. And Ian, again, he can just kind of come up with these like, oh, you work with D.B. Cooper. You know what? It's just that he is too young to even make comments like that because, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. But what is it to him? Is he going to get money off of this?
Maybe he knows where Bigfoot's den is.
He doesn't know where Bigfoot's den is. I know where Bigfoot's den is. I know the future and the past, Ian Gardner, and guess what? You ain't a part of it.
The next one comes from Mikey Campling. I hope I said his name right. He wants me to look you in the eye and shout, "What do you mean by this?"
I mean everything by this. That's what I mean. That's what I mean, Preston, baby.
The next one is from Artie Cabrera.
Oh, Artie.
He says, ask him why he thought housing that alien in his basement was a good idea after his wife had already reported him to the Animal Disease Control Center. Also tell him that dressing the thing up to look like Dolly Parton didn't fool any of us neighbors.
First off, yeah, it didn't fool any of your neighbors, but it did fool Animal Services, did it not? I could keep that freaking thing down there as long as I wanted to, okay? Fire in the Sky is a real true story. I lived it, and guess what? I came off to that and I dragged that alien, you know what, off that thing, and I put him in the basement. I made him dress like a woman, and I don't give it at flying, you know what, Artie. You did it. Guess what? You know what? Animal Control didn't know what to say because first off, you call Animal Control and say there's an alien in the basement. Guess what? They might think it's a lark. They might think it's a joke. And guess what? I said it was a joke. There's just a transvestite living in my basement. So what? And then it's like the alien was all like, hey, bro, can I go back to the spaceship? I'm like, nah, until they pay the $50. All right?
There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Artie thinks he's all so smart about these things that you know how to handle an alien in his basement. Artie don't know anything. Artie can't handle 5 cats in his apartment in downtown Queens or whatever the hell he is.
Ingrid Smith, I hope that's how you say her last name. She wants to know, does being an enigma come natural to you, or is it a recharging thing every morning?
It is something that comes completely natural to me because once upon a time when I was thinking about this before I actually published my first book online at Amazon.com, I thought to myself, you know, everyone knows everything about everyone on the internet. Let's think about this for a second. If you look at pictures of people, you know who their family members are, you know who they hang out, you know what their favorite restaurants are, they usually post the same pictures, yada, yada, yada. And I thought to myself, that was insanity because, one, there's weirdos on the internet, but then two, the other thing is that I thought to myself, you know, what is fun in life is that you don't know everything. You kind of think you do, but you don't. And then the mystery is what makes things fun. You know, when you research conspiracy theories or research, you know, who shot John Kennedy or anything like that, really the fun part is not knowing who everything was and everything had happened. You really just think to yourself, well, it could have been this, might have been that. I don't know. It's dark outside. There's weird people about, and they might be doing something. And I think that, honestly, having an enigma is something that makes people's lives more fun because solving the mystery is more fun than actually knowing how the mystery is solved.
There we go.
There we go.
And then the last listener question actually comes from my wife as we went to, you know, a nice sit-down restaurant tonight, the Huddle House.
The Huddle House? Right.
That's what we got where we live.
What is the Huddle House? What do they serve at the Huddle House? Because I like saying Huddle House.
Do you you heard of the Waffle House?
Oh, my God. Waffle House?
It's kind of like the Waffle House, just not. I like the Waffle House better.
Oh, well, but then the Huddle House doesn't sound that fun anymore, even though I like to say Huddle House.
There you go.
Right.
She wants to know, what is your favorite breakfast food?
Oh, favorite breakfast food, I would have to say is Eggs Benedict.
Okay.
I do think that is the best, actually. But I had to put a little like asterisk on it. An Irish Eggs Benedict is my favorite. There's a place at O'Malley called O'Malley's that's close to me. And they have an Irish Eggs Benedict. So that's like corned beef hash mixed with like an Eggs Benedict kind of thing. And that is the most delicious thing, especially with their coffee too, is that is nirvana in your mouth at 9:00 in the morning. I gotta tell you.
There we go. And then here at the Legendarium, we like to end on what we call the legendary ending. So these are just some fun little questions that we're going to end on. The first one is, what songs are currently on your writing playlist?
What songs are currently? All right, let me pull this up. All right, let's see. I have right now. I have Guns by Negative Land. And Negative Land is a great one. Negative Land is just like this weird group. They've been around like for a long time, and all they do is just like mix up like little like phrases from movies and TV shows, and then like repeat the same thing over and over again. I don't know how to describe it, and if I did, it'd probably be offensive to most of your listeners. And then I have let's see, Calm Trues. Calm Trues. That is a great techno thing.
Okay.
So it sounds like Tom Cruise, but it's Calm Trues. Get it?
Got it.
And it's 84 Dreamin', and it's off of their album In Decay. I also have Tales from the Crypt by Danny Elfman. Ottawa's too. Ottawa's has a great thing. They took like play clips from like Jim Jones and like the Jonestown Massacre. And When the Levee Breaks by Led Zeppelin. Dream Machine, Laserhawk. Let's see, Nine Inch Nails. Toto doing Dune soundtrack. Philip Glass, Fog of War. And Brian Ferry Bête Noire. By the way, Brian Ferry Bête Noire is a classic album that no one remembers. And that is one is just like, it's a really good album that's really atmospheric and very 80s, but apparently disappeared into some like kind of like time hole. And no one knows what the hell I'm talking about ever. But yeah, that's my list.
We'll have to look them up. If you were stuck in a zombie apocalypse with one of the characters that you've created, who would you want to be stuck with and why?
Oh, the main character of Nighthawk's Submission, Sarah Orange. 1, she's young. 2, she likes to drink. 3, she's kind of frisky, if you know what I mean. And then 4, she has abilities to use magic basically through her batons and stuff. And she doesn't mind shooting people. And yeah, that sounds like a date, right? So
she's like the female you. Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little bit. Maybe I just, I have, gender identity issues. You never know, person. You never know what's going on here.
If you could pick any character from any media source, movies, books, comics, whatever, who would you want to be stuck in a zombie apocalypse with?
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Okay, there you go.
Stone Cold. Do you think Stone Cold's gonna be shook by zombies?
Nope.
No, he's not gonna do that.
He'll just Stone Cold stun him.
He'll Stone Cold stun him. We'll spray him with beer. He's got guns. I'm sure he's got like hunting rifles and stuff.
Yeah.
We just drink beer and he just like oh, you dumb son of a. I mean, that's what he just called me the whole time. He'd be like an abusive father figure during that whole experience. I'm fine with that.
He probably would.
So Cold Steve Austin is a cool guy. And plus, I mean, he's very progressive in certain things. I listened to his podcast. I think he'd be fun to hang out with.
I didn't know that. I didn't know he had a podcast.
He does have a podcast. He does. I don't know if it. I mean, honestly, I haven't heard it in like a few months, but it's like I think it's a steady podcast. He talks about wrestling stuff and political stuff, and I think like if I got stuck in like a Costco and I'm shooting zombies, and when Costco's our fortress, and like I gotta like drink whiskey with a guy and like let's talk about life, and the Stone Cold Steve Austin would be awesome.
Yeah. Doesn't he have a kind of a reality show too, or am I thinking another wrestler? Where he takes.
Oh, but I gotta confess, I don't watch. Here's one of the things. I don't know if this was on your question list or not, but I don't have regular television. I only have Netflix. I don't watch episodes. I don't watch anything that's like got commercials. I have none of that. That has completely been out the window for more than a few years now.
Yeah, we mainly do Hulu, Netflix, and then Sling Television.
Yes, and by the way, did you watch 11/22/63? Please tell me.
I did. I loved it.
Wasn't it great? That's one of the best series out there.
Yeah.
My God, anyone who's not watched that is a good fool and should just be treated as such.
Yeah, I loved it. So, but.
Yeah, I thought that was great, and I just thought that was a sucker punch of an ending, and it's just like, oh, this is good stuff.
Yeah, it was. If you had a time machine, where would you travel and why?
Speaking of going off 11/22/63, right?
Right.
I think honestly, if I can zoom out before the the Crash, I think I'd do the Titanic.
Okay.
I think the Titanic would be interesting because it was such like a state-of-the-art thing, and it had like all this stuff going on, and it had like the best of all worlds, and it crashed into an iceberg. But I think it'd be good. I think it'd be fun and interesting. I think because I read up so much of that stuff back in the day. I know this will sound strange. It's like, oh, Forbes West got into Titanic in '97. I just thought that the Crash was really good, and I thought that the whole story of like the celebrities going down on one giant ship, I thought it was interesting. I thought the craftsmanship of the whole ship was kind of neat. I thought it was kind of this a cool thing, and so yeah, I would check out the Titanic and then boogie out before it, most of the poor people died.
There we go. And if you had one superpower, which one would you want to have?
Laser beams from the eyes.
Why's that?
Because it's funny.
There we go. And then the question that we're famous for, a penguin walks through the door right now wearing a sombrero. What does he say and why is he here?
What does he say and why is he here? I think he says that you owe me $1.50 and the acid, it won't wear off for the next 12 hours.
There we go. And do you have any advice, whether it be for writing or for life, that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think the only advice I can't do for life, I don't think I could be in that position, but I think for writing, I think the fact is that if you have a good idea and you think it should be in a book, then maybe get off your ass and do it. And yes, it will take a long time. And yes, it will feel like you're bleeding from the fingertips. Or as Stephen King says, it feels like you're shoveling from a sitting position.
Mm-hmm.
But it's worth it. I think a lot of people who are talented, who know books, who read a lot of books, who have good daydreams and ideas, just do not get it down on paper because they're intimidated by the process. I think that you have to really do that. You have to make sure that happens. And you just have to suck it up and do it. And yeah, it's going to suck for a long time. And it's going to probably suck for months. And it's going to be this dumb and you're going to feel stupid. But you're doing the world a disservice by just deciding not to do it. I just think that, sucking up and doing a marathon of this, like I've done for more than a few books, in the end, it really, it's worthwhile. Everything is worthwhile. And most of the time when you think it's a terrible idea, just realize that Transformers was made, Dude, Where My Car was made. Just think about the fact that Sharknado was made. Just think about the fact that, Baby Geniuses was made. Just think of every awful thing out there. And the only difference between you and them is that they actually sucked it up and decided to write it all out.
Right.
And I'm going to bet that most of the time you can do better than Sharknado, Baby Geniuses, Transformers. and I always hear people always tell me, it's like, I have this idea for a book, but I just haven't had the time to do it. Yes, you do have the time to do it. You really freaking do. Okay? Just write 500 words a day. That's all Hemingway ever did. They had a study. They went through all the old authors, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know how exactly they picked up on how much they did per day, but they had like the readout. And Hemingway only did 500 words per day. 500 words. That's not much. Mm-hmm. But he made novel after novel, short story after short story again. And that's between, drinking and fishing and, selling guns to communists or whatever the hell he was doing, right?
Right.
And he sucked out. If you can do 500 words a day, you can get your novel done. And I think that most people are somehow, oh my God, dropping things. Most people are just somehow intimidated by the whole process when they really shouldn't be, especially nowadays. I mean, when Hemingway was doing his crap, he has a famous line about writing where he says that, there's nothing to writing. It's just sitting in front of a typewriter and bleeding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you don't have typewriters anymore. You have MS Word. You can rearrange paragraphs. You can have spell check. You know how many word count it is. It is made so much easier nowadays, but most people are psychologically intimidated by the whole process for no good reason. And it makes me just really sad because I have a friend, and I know there's more people out there who is like, yeah, I could write, but it's just it takes a long time. I just don't know if I'm up for that. It's like, come on. And Preston, baby, I'm sorry, you're going to have to bleep me again, but it's
right.
It really is. There's no reason. You can actually suck it up and figure it out. It's just that most people think that writing is some kind of like, sorcerer's magic done in like a dungeon somewhere in southwestern France that you'll never see. And then, somehow they pop out and go, haha, I just made a new bestseller. No, it's just go and do it. Just try it, And what's the worst you can say? You spend 500 words per day doing it, right?
Right.
500 words could be maybe 2 to 4 hours. And yeah, that sounds like a lot, but maybe you get somewhere in life. I don't know.
500 words a day is 182,500 words in a year.
But you and your math skills there, Preston.
What can I say?
Well, there you go. You beat me to the punch here.
The calculator app's amazing. Where can people go to if they want to learn more about you or your books or your movies or anything else?
Go to ForbesWestBooks.com. That's ForbesWestBooks.com. Powered by Third Scribe. And they can find out everything I'm doing right there. I keep copies of my podcast, At The Benbow Inn, and then also postings about what I'm doing and also links to my books as well.
Sounds good. Well, thank you for joining us today for this episode of 30-Minute Author Interviews.
Thank you so much, Preston, baby. I appreciate it.
Well, guys, that's all the time we've got for this episode. Thank you for listening to 30-Minute Author Interviews. Did you know that Forbes West has a giveaway going on with this podcast? All you've got to do is head on over to legendarium.com. That's leighdgendarium.com and check out the show notes for this episode. The giveaway will run until Friday, September 16th, 2016 at 8 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Good luck, everyone. And until next time, stay legendary. Oh, screwed that one up. Blooper reel.